In episode 7 of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, in Sendai City as Kenjaku appears inside the bedroom of a sleeping girl named Setsuko. Startled awake, she stares at the strange man looming over her and asks who he is. Calmly, Kenjaku explains that he is the sorcerer responsible for placing a massive barrier over the city. Sendai has been selected as one of the stages for a deadly contest where players will fight to the death, the culling game. He explains that the remains of a nearby execution site serve as the center of the barrier, which stretches roughly 5 to 6 kilometers in radius. Constructing such a barrier required immense effort, so he can't impose unreasonable conditions. For civilians like Setsuko who were already inside when it formed, they are granted one chance to leave. If she chooses to, she will awaken outside the barrier. Confused, Setsuko wonders what he means by awaken and asks if she's dreaming. Kenjaku cryptically replies that the space between dreams and reality is itself a curse. Taking her hand, he gently escorts her through the chaos unfolding beyond the barrier, warning her to be careful of the impatient players already outside. As they part, Kenjaku thanks her for befriending his son, an ominous remark that lingers. Setsuko awakens safely outside the barrier, the very moment the culling game begins. Her friend Iguchi finds her amid the panic. He points out the enormous barrier wall and mentions that everyone saw a man dressed in Buddhist robes. When Setsuko asks if the man mentioned having a son, Iguchi says no. Setsuko quietly wonders if Kenjaku meant Yuji. Elsewhere, Hakari finally sits down to hear Yuji and Megumi out. He's stunned to learn that Gojo has been sealed and even more shocked to hear from Panda that Principal was killed by higher-ups after the Shibuya incident. Hakari agrees to help them deal with the culling game, but makes it clear this is strictly a deal. If he helps them, they'll owe him in return. Panda guesses Hakari wants revisions to jujitsu regulations, likely targeting the conservative higher-ups. Megumi casually comments that whatever it is probably won't be difficult, irritating Hakari, who snaps back and calls him sea urchin head. In response, Megumi calmly reveals he's now the head of the Zenin clan. That revelation shocks Hakari even more than the news about Gojo and Yaga. With backing from one of the big three families, revising regulations could become much easier. However, Hakari also realizes that means keeping the Zenin clan from interfering with his fight club could become complicated. He suddenly switches to a friendly tone and suggests he and Megumi become buddies, unaware that Maki will wipe out the Zenin clan the very next day. As the group begins discussing which colony each of them will enter, Kogane suddenly appears above Yuji with a loud chime. It announces a newly added rule: players can now access information about other players, including their name, points, rules added, and colony. Kogane then introduces itself directly to Yuji as his assigned liaison for the culling game. Megumi is confused why Yuji is already registered as a player despite not entering a colony yet. Yuji suspects it may be connected to Sukuna and theorizes it could relate to how Sukuna became a cursed object. Megumi notes that Yuji consumed Sukuna's finger of his own free will, unlike past sorcerers who made contracts with Kenjaku, making it even stranger. Using Kogane's interface, Yuji checks his player information while Megumi searches for Kashimo's name. Megumi proposes a strategy. They can clear the culling game without killing anyone by forcing a high-scoring player to add rules that benefit them. The two strongest candidates are Hajime Kashimo and Hiromi Higuruma. To save Tsumaki, they first need to counteract Rule 8, which removes a player's curse technique after 19 days of inactivity. Megumi suggests adding a rule allowing players to transfer points between each other. Then, they could add another rule permitting players to spend points to leave the game entirely. Hakari questions whether that might conflict with the game's existing structure, but Megumi believes it's worth trying. Ultimately, it depends on the game master, but at least now they have a plan. Their objectives become clear: locate the angel to unseal the prison realm and hunt down Kashimo and Higuruma. Hakari decides he and Panda will enter the Tokyo No. 2 colony, while Yuji and Megumi will go to Tokyo No. 1. Kirara will remain outside the barrier to act as support, since cell phones don't work inside. With Yuta out of contact, they'll need someone on the outside monitoring the situation. Finally, on November 12th, the team arrives at their designated barriers in Tokyo. Kogane explains that inside lies the lethal competition known as the culling game and asks if they are willing to enter and declare themselves participants. Without hesitation, Megumi, Panda, and Hakari accept. Inside the Tokyo No. 1 colony, where a woman named Hanyu stands on top of a skyscraper overlooking the city. Wearing aviators and holding a walkie-talkie, she demands a signal from Rin Amai, a boy she's been forcing to work for her. Rin nervously replies that he can't do anything if no one shows up, which immediately irritates her. Annoyed by his hesitation, Hanyu activates her cursed technique. Her hair transforms into the rear of a jet plane, and she threatens to run Rin over if he talks back again. Outside the colony barrier, Yuji and Megumi prepare to enter. Megumi warns Yuji that they need to be cautious of incarnated sorcerers from past eras. Some of these players are from 1,000 years ago, and even those from a century ago have completely different values. Back then, sorcerers treated life differently, and fighting to the death was normal. Some even longed for an honorable death in battle, which could explain why they willingly joined the culling game. Megumi doubts they'll be able to negotiate with these ancient sorcerers. Yuji agrees they also need to watch out for cursed spirits, especially at night. Still, Megumi hopes that modern sorcerers caught in the game, like his sister Tsumiki, will be more reasonable. When they knock on the barrier, Kogane appears and announces that anyone who enters will officially become a player in the deadly culling game. Without hesitation, Megumi declares his participation, skipping the rule explanation entirely. Determined to save his sister, he reminds Yuji that their first objective is gathering information on Hiromi Higuruma. The moment they step inside, they're separated and transported to different locations within the colony. Yuji suddenly finds himself falling from the sky, confused and wondering where Megumi is. New players are randomly dropped into one of 9 locations, and certain individuals take advantage of this by ambushing disoriented newcomers. Rin spots Yuji falling and signals Hanyu with a guiding light baton. Hanyu rockets forward using her cursed technique and slams directly into Yuji at high speed, smashing through 2 buildings in the process. It's an attack that would have crushed most players, but Yuji walks away unharmed, quickly regaining his footing and surprising her. He lands on a nearby building and prepares to fight back. Recognizing his toughness, Hanyu calls for her partner. Before she can regroup, Yuji hurls a chunk of debris charged with cursed energy. The rock slams into her lower abdomen, severely injuring her. Yuji is surprised by how easily she went down, but he doesn't have time to dwell on it. Hanyu's partner, Haba, appears behind him, hovering in the air with a helicopter-like curse technique. Furious, he demands to know what Yuji did to Hanyu. Instead of answering, Yuji asks about Higuruma. Meanwhile, Rin watches from a distance and suddenly recognizes Yuji as someone familiar, Itadori from Sendai. Elsewhere in the colony, Megumi has his own encounter. He knocks down a female player who attacked him. When she questions his aggression, he bluntly reminds her that she struck first. Frustrated about being separated from Yuji and unable to locate him, even with New's help, Megumi realizes the colony is enormous, possibly placing them over 2 kilometers apart. He questions the girl about Higuruma's whereabouts, but she refuses to cooperate unless he agrees to act as her knight and protect her. Reluctantly, Megumi agrees, but only on his terms. He tells her to walk in front and promises protection only if she's telling the truth. Otherwise, he implies he won't hesitate to eliminate her for points. Unlike Yuji, Megumi is fully prepared to rack up 100 points himself if necessary. Unfazed, the girl smirks and introduces herself as Remy. Back with Yuji, the fight against Haba intensifies. Yuji throws another cursed energy-infused stone, but Haba shreds it with his spinning propeller. Using the opening, Yuji rushes in, leaps high, grabs Haba's leg, and drags him down the side of a building. The crash forces Haba to acknowledge Yuji's overwhelming physical strength. Haba breaks free and attacks again, spinning like a drill through a building corridor, slicing everything in his path. Yuji realizes that while Haba's propeller is deadly, it leaves his head vulnerable. As Haba charges at him, Yuji times it perfectly and punches him directly on top of the head. The impact stops Haba cold. Even with his propeller damaged and blood pouring from his head, Haba remains standing and arrogantly assumes Yuji broke his hand. But Yuji quickly proves him wrong, finishing him with a powerful kick. Haba collapses unconscious while Yuji brushes off the damage. Just as Yuji wonders how to interrogate an opponent mid-fight, Rin suddenly appears behind him. Rin claims he knows where Higuruma is and asks if Yuji remembers him. Yuji doesn't, until Rin mentions the nickname, Tiger of West Junior High. Embarrassed, Yuji realizes Rin is from his hometown of Sendai. Meanwhile, Megumi continues walking with Remy, questioning whether she's a sorcerer from the past. She confirms she's modern day, explaining that players who started inside the colony have already been enduring the culling game for 12 days. Most aren't trying to win, they're just trying to survive. After over a week of non-stop fighting, even modern players have adopted a ruthless, battle-focused mindset. Megumi realizes that past sorcerers have influenced modern ones, and this means he may have underestimated the situation when explaining it to Yuji. Sensing something suspicious, Megumi stops Remy and demands she reveal where she's taking him. She refuses, arguing that once he gets the information, he could simply eliminate her. She insists it's his duty as her knight to protect her. At the same time, Rin guides Yuji through the colony, explaining that he was being forced to work with Hanyu and Haba and would have been eliminated eventually. Now, he claims he genuinely wants to help. Finally, both Yuji and Megumi receive the information they've been searching for. Rin tells Yuji that Higuruma is in Ikebukuro. At the exact same time, Remy tells Megumi that Higuruma is in Shinjuku. And that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.